G'day. In this week's video, we are going to Cebu Ocean Park Aquarium. Lyn and I went there for a day out and went to see all the fish, and they've got birds and crocodiles and reptiles and bird shows actually, and penguins and all the other aquarium type stuff. So come have a look, see what you think of it. It's a pretty fun day out. Hey, how's your week been? So, as I said, the aquarium, pretty good day out. So, really, this video, we were looking for something to do one day, and that was what we decided to go to. And yeah, the aquarium, it's a pretty interesting day there. Not as big as some, like I believe there's a big aquarium in Manila, and it's probably not quite as big as that. I haven't been to it, but from what I've seen of it, this one looks probably similar, but not quite as big maybe, but it's definitely worth going to. They have a lot of these, well, obviously they have a lot of big fish, but they have quite a few big tanks at the start where you come in where there's some really big fish and they look like albino fish and things like that in there, which is pretty cool. There's stacks of little tanks for, little smaller fish and very brightly colored and things like that. It'd be a good place to go if you've got kids or some kids you want to bring along, maybe your niece and nephew or whatnot. I think we paid probably, I want to say we went on a weekday, and I think it's a bit cheaper on the weekdays than it is on the weekends, but I think it was about 600 or 700 pesos per person, so not overly expensive, and we probably spent a solid 3 or 4 hours in there. It's definitely worth the money. So on top of the fish, obviously there's lots of fish, and you see all the different types and whatnot. They do have quite a few birds as well, so you sort of start off and there's a few fish fish tanks and things, showing all the different types of fish that they have at the start, and then you go, as you move through, you go into there's an outdoor sort of aviary area. Now in the aviary area, they've got some parrots and I don't remember all the birds' names, but there's definitely quite a few Australian ones in there, which I've noticed because I see those exact same birds right where I live all the time. So specifically ones in there called rainbow lorikeets. I think there's some other ones that are very red, mostly red in color, red and green. I think they're called king parrots or something like that. I'm not sure of the name, but you could feed them in there. We didn't because it was very hot out there. But definitely you could go in there, you could pay for some seed and you'd feed them, and they'd fly down and land on you and land on all over you and whatnot. We just watched the others doing that, had to walk around in there, had to look at the birds and whatnot, and then went back in where it was a bit cooler inside. I believe from there, as you continue on, because it's kind of like a linear path, you can't sort of walk in and go, oh, we'll go here and then here and then here and then back here over there. It's sort of like one path that mostly sort of goes the whole way through, and you kind of just follow along. So I believe after that we came across some, like a reptile room, which had snakes and lizards and whatnot in there, spiders and things like that. I didn't think Lyn was super pumped with those. I quite like those, but again, a lot of the lizards and stuff were Australian ones. Not that we get a lot of the bearded dragons and stuff down in Melbourne where I live, but certainly there was quite a few Australian animals in there. I say Australian because obviously I live here and I see what they are, but I wonder if maybe they're throughout Asia as well. I'm not sure. As you continue on going through, there is some outdoor areas and some interactive tanks where you can sort of reach in and touch the marine life, I guess you'd call it, in there, with some like starfish, and some of them have I think like maybe stingrays or something in there. But again, good for kids if you wanted to reach in and sort of have a play. It's an interesting thing for kids to do, which is nice. They had a few big tanks. Well, when I say big, not like swimming pool size, but quite big fish tanks with like schools of fish swimming around them. And I think they had the water kind of moving in them in a circle, which meant that they'd swim in these big schools of fish swimming around together in there, which I thought that was pretty cool. Then they moved on, and there was a whole heap of very brightly coloured like coral and whatnot in them, which was nice to look at. And as we headed on through there, then there's a big tank which has, it's a wildly big crocodile in it. I know, again, Australia has crocodiles in the north, and I've never sort of seen them live, but they can get pretty big. I would think would have to be one of them, similar size to the very big ones we get in Australia. It was a pretty big croc. To be completely honest, that whole kind of first section of that it's interesting, and you know, if you want to take your time to read about the different types of fish and you like that sort of stuff, you know, that's pretty interesting. But it's kind of like oh, look at that, that's interesting. Oh, look at an albino fish, that's interesting too. Oh, you can touch this in here, and it's just kind of, but it's sort of quick. Then you get to a point where they have like a bird show, and so you've got like this sort of auditorium, and they come out with all different birds, and they'll walk around up near you and show you the birds, and a lot of those again were like Australian birds, so like cockatoos and cockatiels and some big eagles and things like that. The eagles were cool. They'd have like a handler up at the top, sort of where you're sitting at the back, and then another handler way down on the stage, and the eagles would fly out and up to the other one and fly back down again, and so that was pretty cool. I quite enjoyed that. That probably went for maybe half an hour or 45 minutes or something, that was really pretty interesting and pretty fun to watch. And then after that, you really get into like the sort of the last, it's what you expect when you go to an aquarium like that, you know, the huge big pool of water, and you're walking through the tube underneath, and it's a big glass tube, and you've got big stingrays going over the top of you, and sharks swimming around, and big fish everywhere, and a nice big seating area which you can sit in the middle of it, where you can sit sort of underneath all the water and under the fish as they swim all around you, that is actually very cool. I enjoyed that. That was fun. Very busy when we got there. It was very busy, but when you got into the larger sort of circular area of it, it was not as bad. So from there's a couple of sort of big tanks that might have had, I feel like it might have been seals, but maybe it wasn't seals. But there was a couple of big tanks which had like big fish in them. But and then the last bit, as you're coming out, just before you get to the exit, or what do you call it? The gift shop, I think you call it. As you're coming sort of to that area, there's like a little restaurant which we didn't eat in, but on both sides, the inside of the restaurant and the outside of the restaurant, you've got penguins, like pretty big penguins. I'm not sure if they were king penguins or what they were, but they were quite big. Maybe emperor penguins, is that what they're called? But they were quite big, and we didn't. There was someone in there though who had obviously paid to go in and do a feeding experience with them, where you could go in and hand feed them and whatnot, which would have been pretty cool. But yeah, they were big penguins. We in Melbourne anyway, we get fairy penguins. I don't think they call them fairy penguins anymore. I think that's culturally inappropriate or something. I don't know. I don't care about that sort of stuff. But I think they call them little penguins or something else. I don't know. It's probably insulting to little things. Who knows? But we have little penguins. We call them fairy penguins. They're probably about this big, but these ones were probably, you know, like big. So yeah, pretty cool. After we'd finished there, pretty much directly across the road from it, because it's in sort of the southern coastal part of Cebu City. And so literally across the road from it is SM Seaside, I think it's called, which is a pretty big mall. So I think when we were finished then, we went over there and had some lunch before we from there headed back home again. A fun day at the aquarium. Anyway, that's it. Thank you for watching. Like, subscribe, all those things if you want to. If you don't, have an awesome week, and I will see you next week. Bye.